Thank you, everybody. I truly appreciate it. About a month after the election, I was invited to an event in Bristol, and to celebrate Dan Riley, Dan Gordon, and Chris Adiano all winning in the East Bay.
Yeah. Yeah.
As each one of them got up to speak, they started off their speeches by saying, "Oh, John didn't win." Talk about John Robitaille. And when I finally got the microphone, I said, "Now I know what my own wake would sound like." Look, tonight's not a night to be sad about anything. Tonight is a night to celebrate Ronald Reagan and what that man stood for. And when Meg put this together, when she reached out to me and said, "John, I want you to talk about how Ronald Reagan influenced you in your life." And there are so many quotes that Ronald Reagan is famous for. You know, there are the humorous ones when he said that when a liberal becomes wealthy, they call it success. When a conservative becomes wealthy, they call it greed. I have another word, it's called envy.
There you go.
I really like that one. But Reagan, when asked, how would he like to be remembered? His answer was so compelling. He said, "I want to be remembered as the president that helped Americans believe in themselves."
Yep.
Belief in self is a theme that back in the 90s, I focused on when I did some motivational speaking for a lot of individuals who are recovering from traumas in their lives. And it is such a powerful concept that liberals don't understand it. You know, their mantra is belief in government. And when you look at the war that's going on right now between belief in self and belief in government, it is getting more and more defined. Defined by the policies of liberal politicians, defined by the dependency that certain cultures in America have been promoting right here in Rhode Island. You know, it wasn't too long ago on the campaign trail, I had an opportunity to speak at Roger Williams Casino. And it was basically a lot of people who, not supported, but who worked in the areas of poverty, children's issues. And all 7 at the time gubernatorial candidates were up on stage. And it was my turn to speak. I had listened to and seen PowerPoint after PowerPoint after PowerPoint, and complaints after complaints after complaints of how the state had cut this program, the state had cut that program, how they needed more. And I don't know what possessed me, but when I got the microphone, I basically went into a bunch of questions to the people in the audience, with primarily poverty advocates and the clergy. And I said, you know, in your own report that you just put out, you state that the greatest cause of poverty in America is fatherless families. And that 97% of subsidized housing in Rhode Island is occupied by single mothers with multiple children. Where are those fathers? Why are we not holding them accountable for their responsibility and their actions? Why is it government's responsibility to step in when someone has made a bad choice or a bad decision? And that is something that Ronald Reagan believed in. Ronald Reagan believed that every time we raise taxes, we lose a bit of our freedom. Every time government grows and Americans become more dependent upon government programs, we lose some of the fundamentals that made this country so strong. And it is absolutely amazing when you sit down and try to talk with some of these people, when you look at what's been happening in education in Central Falls. I don't know if any of you read or heard the essay that I wrote for the conservative radio station in town, NPR. Yeah, I thought they had a wrong number when they called me and said, "John, would you do an essay? You're from Central Falls, and you know we'd like you to do an essay." So I wrote and recorded an essay, and basically I lambasted, and some of my relatives still live in Central Falls, that here is a community that may very well lose its right to self-government. And in a year where they are on the verge of they are in bankrupt receivership, one step short of bankruptcy, of the 19,000 residents, only 6,700 of them are registered voters, and only 2,100, 31% of those eligible to vote voted in the last election. They are not engaged. They're not engaged in their community. And when the citizens are not engaged in their community, what do you get? Corruption, runaway government,
We got chased.
spending. Save the tooth where he says we get. But you know, the whole point of the essay was to say, look, what have we become? What are we becoming when we've lost that spirit of self-reliance and the ability to stand tall and take the responsibility for choices that we've made in our lives? And think automatically, our children are being taught that government's the answer. And in the ghettos, in the areas of subsidized housing, we have our state workers that are out there telling these young women not to get married.
Whoa.
These are people representing your government that are working the system so that they can perpetuate this toxic dependency on government. And it's pervasive throughout Rhode Island. And when you look at our schools, this idea that everybody has to graduate, everybody gets a trophy. You know, when you have that philosophy in education or in sports or with our kids, it takes away the incentive to win, to work hard, to achieve. It diminishes the joy of success. It makes everyone into this, lulls them into this anything goes, government will take care of me if I fall on tough times. That's unfortunately where we're heading if we don't do something about it. And it's the people in this room, and you can never, ever give up, because I'm not giving up.
Here.
I'm not.
Yeah! Lift your hand, John.
Everybody here, and you don't know this, but I did a lot of studying about personal empowerment and the strength of the human being and what lies within all of us. And what lies within all of us is this latent reservoir of latent human potential that you can't even imagine what you have residing in you. And that with optimism. You know, General Colin Powell, one of his quotes that I put on my website when I was running is that optimism is a force multiplier. We may be outnumbered. And what I learned in the brief period of time I served with a great group of heroes. Well, I never wore the Green Beret, but I served alongside them. These folks were trained in a small group of highly motivated, dedicated individuals who are optimists and knew that they would succeed and could defeat an opponent 10 times their size.